No one desires a government shutdown. What we desire and what we are working towards is changing how Washington works. The American people have had enough. They see the Democrat policies destroying our economy, destroying our security, destroying opportunity for their children and grandchildren. And we are taking a stand here.
That was Congressman Mike Johnson, days before the House narrowly avoided a government shutdown in late September. Johnson's predecessor, Kevin McCarthy, was forced out of a job because he worked with Democrats to keep the government open. 90 Republicans voted against McCarthy's plan. Mike Johnson was one of them. But now Speaker Mike Johnson faces the same problems McCarthy did: a narrow Republican majority, members of his conference who might punish him if he works with Democrats, but the reality that nothing will pass the Senate or get signed into law without working with Democrats who hold those institutions. To untangle all of this, we're going to bring in CBS News congressional correspondent Scott MacFarlane. Scott, so how is Speaker Johnson approaching these shutdown talks, which has all of the same elements of the ones we've seen before?
There's a growing sense he's going to need Democratic votes. He doesn't have sufficient Republican votes to make this happen, and that's a bit of an art right now, getting both parties to agree on anything. It's possible there's a vote as early as tomorrow on this plan that kicks the can down the curb just a matter of weeks. It would fund 1/3 of the government, John, through January. The other 2/3, including the Pentagon, gets funded through February. And he would need some combination of Republican and Democratic votes, which you may recall, John, on September 30th was how they kept the government open until now. And that type of bipartisan vote helped contribute to then Speaker Kevin McCarthy losing his speakership. So for Mike Johnson, it's a matter of twisting some arms and having Democrats do the rest of the work.
Before we get to the nose counting, Scott, I want to understand why he has separated these bills in two. Is there a political reason to do that, or is there some substantive reason to do that?
Well, the supporters of doing that, and there have been supporters of this type of double pathway, double road for some months now, would argue it gives them two bites at the apple, gives them two chances to leverage their power to lower federal spending in 2024 and 2025. Two different, separate pieces of leverage. Critics of this plan, which include any number of Democrats, say this sets a dangerous precedent. It complicates things. It also may complicate things for the government agencies themselves, even if they're funded. For example, the Department of Homeland Security does work to protect the Department of Energy. The Department of Treasury works with the Department of Commerce on economic plans, on safety plans. If you shut down one agency but don't shut down the other, you complicate even the life of the agency that is funded. So there are pitfalls here, but they may be digestible. They may be acceptable for people who don't want to see a shutdown and don't mind that this bill doesn't cut anything that they think is sacrosanct and doesn't include any controversial policy initiatives.
Let's plumb the digestion here. First of the Republicans, Scott, their opinion to a continuing resolution at all, or this double-barreled approach, they are bucking their new speaker a little bit.
I think so. I think ultimately they don't want to support anything, and they believe their constituents don't support anything that does not cut federal spending, and they can't vote for it. Let me tell you, as this bill came to fruition, as we worked the halls and talked to members today, it became clear, John, the enthusiasm for this bill matches the enthusiasm my kids have when I tell them we're going to the dry cleaner on an errand. Like, there's just no love for this. It just seems to be stomachable. And at this moment in time, here in the Capitol, that may be sufficient to get something passed.
And what about the Democrats? How are they feeling about this two-pronged approach, and are they going to help out the new speaker?
They do not like the two-pronged approach, but they do like a different component of this bill. I talked to a senior Democratic aide tonight who says, we do like that they're not cutting spending. We do like they haven't put what they call poison pills into this legislation, a controversial policy that they know Democrats won't go for. That the new speaker has chosen to do so, whether he publicly says so or not, is a bit of an olive branch to Democrats. And there is the possibility, John, as the night began, they may need more than a majority to pass this, to keep the lights on, to keep the government open, to keep the paychecks coming for federal workers. They may need 2/3 of the House to vote for this because of that intricate House rule that means if you don't have a majority passing the rule to open debate, which is possible. You then need to get 2/3 of members to pass the bill. It may come to that because there may be some stumbling on the initial steps here from those hardline Republicans who don't like that it's clean, and from Democrats who don't want to support that dual pathway that they think is baffling and puzzling in their words.
Well, they're not wrong about that. Scott, let me ask you this question quickly. The deadline's Friday. Give us a prognosis in the hallways. Do people think this can get all worked out by then?
There's a confidence here I didn't sense in September. In September, there seemed to be a confidence this government was going to shut down, and there was a surprise. They pulled it off in the 11th hour. It's almost the reverse here, that they think the chemistry is right to get this thing temporarily through. You know, it's a temporary pause. It goes till January and February. There's no long-term commitment here. There seems to be a confidence that's growing, but there's never a certainty in this Congress.
Indeed. Scott MacFarlane on Capitol Hill. Thank you so much, Scott.
Thanks, John.